We're not talking here about the discovery of some single-cell life form beneath some frozen sea, on some distant moon, orbiting some distant planet in a far-off star system. We're talking about another highly intelligent and highly technologically developed, but distinctly non-human species right here in our Milky Way galaxy. There are 5 different species that appear to be from 5 different star systems. All of them have been around so much longer than our human family has existed on our planet. They have been able to develop the technology that enables them to come from their distant star system here to our planet. We now are charged with responsibility as citizens of our planet to reach out and establish direct communication with these beings. Now that we realize that we are in a much larger community, that there are literally thousands of planets here in our Milky Way galaxy, that almost certainly have technologically developed intelligent species.
My name is Danny Sheehan. I'm a constitutional litigator who's worked some of the most important cases in modern American history. From Pentagon Papers, the Watergate scandal, to Iran-Contra. My legal career has led me now to this pivotal moment. As our human family confronts the implications of the existence here on our planet of extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional non-human species. I will be your guide as we dive into the profound philosophical, theological, and public policy questions pertaining to the UFO phenomenon, alien life, and the citizen movement for disclosure. This is the Full Disclosure Podcast, coming to you from the New Paradigm Institute on SpectraVision Radio.
We are now in the final drive of the first legislative session of the 119th Congress here in the United States. Each Congress is divided into 2 sessions. This is the first year of the 4-year term of Donald Trump's second administration. We are coming to the crucial month in the first session where the legislation that's been proposed throughout the first term comes to a final head. This is where we're going to have the major votes on whether or not the budget for 2026 is going to include an extension of the Obama subsidies for health care. It's going to make a determination as to whether or not there's going to be any provision for full disclosure of the UFO phenomenon inserted into the National Defense Authorization Act and other major pieces of major legislation. This is the conference committee period between the House and the Senate, where the different bills that have been passed in differing forms in the House and Senate come together for a conference, and a resolution between the 2 houses is made. Congressman Eric Burleson, who has responsibility for the UFO disclosure issue in the Congress, is making one last major attempt to insert into the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act the Senate-passed bill that was passed back in 2023. He is going to be attempting to get inserted into the National Defense Authorization Act of 2026 for next year. The 2023 National Defense Authorization Act provision that was proposed by the United States Senate called the UAP Disclosure Act. All of our 6 U.S. military services all 18 of our U.S. intelligence agencies and all 32 of our United States Defense Department agencies are understood to be in possession of information pertaining to the UFO phenomenon and are withholding it. This is a last-ditch effort to try to get this bill put into the National Defense Authorization Act. Now, this is not absolutely essential as the only means by which this can be achieved, but it is one of the easier ways by means of which to get this to happen. So the person who is responsible for this effort is Congressman Eric Burleson. He is the Republican congressperson from Missouri who is on the special task force inside the House Oversight Committee. There's been assigned responsibility to try to get to the bottom of the UFO phenomenon and to extract from the executive branch for Congress the information that is known by the executive branch about this phenomenon. He is going to be making one major effort to try to get both the House and the Senate to agree during the conference committee period to insert this entirely new bill into the National Defense Authorization Act, with neither House, the Senate or the House, having passed an independent piece of legislation on this term. So this is a long shot. Any such effort to insert some new piece of legislation at this point of the conference committee is almost totally destined to fail. Now, this is one last good faith effort on the part of the UFO task force, basically the task force on full disclosure, to try to get this bill put into the National Defense Authorization Act. If Congressman Burleson's last-ditch effort fails here in December of 2025, this is just the expiration of one method by means of which this bill might get put before Congress. If this were not to succeed, he is going to be introducing at the beginning of the second session, which begins in January, a standalone bill. And we're going to determine which of the two ways the American people are basically going to mobilize to succeed in getting the full disclosure of this UFO information. Last week, we talked about the content of some of the revelations that have been made in this documentary film, The Age of Disclosure. Every one of these revelations was authorized by the United States Defense Department. There is a special office in the Defense Department. This is the United States Defense Department Office of Pre-Publication Security Review, and they have now authorized the release of all of this information. What I want to talk about today is what the kind of full implications of that are. There's a very intense discussion going on now in this week following the November 21st public release of this documentary film. Most people are just in awe of the substantive revelations that were made by these high-ranking government officials. This is being reported now as a news event, a real event that has taken place, that there has been a dramatic shift, a second only to the dramatic shift that occurred after the 2017 front page revelations of the New York Times. Dr. Stephen Greer, the longtime director of the Disclosure Project, for which, as many of you know, I served as general counsel for 20 years. Dr. Greer has taken the position that this documentary film was nothing more than a major propaganda piece on the part of the Defense Intelligence Agency, that this was a conscious propaganda effort for the high-ranking military intelligence officials to come out and try to scare everybody into believing that the UFO phenomenon not only is true and that the ET civilization does actually exist, but that in fact that it constitutes a major national security threat to our country and indeed to our planet, suggesting that this could be a step being taken by the Defense Intelligence Agency and the legacy group inside the Defense Department to actually prepare for some type of a potential false attack on the part of the extraterrestrial people to try to strengthen the hand of the national security state, to enable them to invoke the continuity of government authority that they have developed and to basically seize power. I mean, he has taken this very extreme position with regard to this. Now that puts the issue to everyone. Other people have been surprised by this type of an assertion on Dr. Greer's part, because they say, look, this is an extraordinary revelation on the part of these people that have taken great risk, and it's only by bringing 34 of these people all together at one time was it possible to get them to come forward to challenge the deep state or the legacy group, trying to put pressure on Congress to pass some legislation to increase the full disclosure. Now, our New Paradigm Institute has been having important discussions among our Citizens for Disclosure groups that are now in some 38 of the states. We're planning to have all 50 states have a major Citizens for Disclosure group operational by the end of this year, by the end of this month, basically. But the discussion has begun now about how to really perceive this film. We have, at the New Paradigm Institute, viewed this as such an important film that we have actively participated in showing it to people, to thousands of people. We intend to show it to many hundreds of thousands of people, because we believe that the basic revelations that are set forth in the film are so important to so many people who place credence in the high-level officials of our United States government. Those people are going to be convinced now that the UFO phenomenon is real, and that the ET presence here in our galaxy is real. We have a non-human extraterrestrial civilization surrounding us. They are coming and going from our planet. They have been in direct face-to-face communication with officials of our government. For example, the Holloman Air Force Base event of 1964 that is attested to in the documentary film by Dr. Eric Davis, who was one of the chief engineers in the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Special Access Program. He had a direct private conversation with George Bush Sr. when George Bush Sr. was president of the United States. George Bush Sr. acknowledged to Dr. Eric Davis that at Holloman Air Force Base back in 1964 in New Mexico, 3 UFOs approached, hovered over the tarmac. One of them landed on the tarmac, and a non-human but humanoid being, extraterrestrial being, got out of the craft and met directly on the tarmac with 2 high-ranking United States military officials and 2 plainclothes government officials who he asserts he was told were CIA people. And I mentioned last week that I had been told earlier by Colonel Edgar Mitchell, personally in a conversation with him, that he knew that this had happened as well. He gave the details of that to me. We are concerned, and many of the people to whom we showed the video were immediately concerned about the repeated references in the film that the existence of this extraterrestrial civilization and the fact that they're coming and going on our planet constitutes a national security threat to our United States military and to the sovereignty of our country. This is deeply troubling. It's clear that the particular individuals that were assembled, these 34 high-level officials, all coming from the United States Defense Department and the intelligence community, have been tasked throughout their entire careers with protecting the national security of the United States, protecting the airspace over the United States, protecting the territorial waters around the country. And so the entrance into this airspace of any type of vehicles that were unidentified and did not respond to attempted communications, they perceive genuinely as a threat. And so that they conveyed that particular perception of this phenomenon. Now, on the other hand, the vast majority of people in the country, when they understand now that the extraterrestrial civilization exists and that the UFO phenomenon is real, which means that members of this extraterrestrial civilization are now coming and going from our planet, the vast overwhelming majority of the people, when we learn about this, are extraordinarily excited, and they're very positively disposed toward attempting to find out where these beings come from, how much longer they may have existed in our universe or in our galaxy, longer than we, and what other information they know about the obvious superiority that they have with regard to technology by having been able to travel from their distant star system, perhaps many millions of light years, coming to our planet. How is that done? What is the energy source that engines those types of craft? What is the ability that they have? How is it that they can, in fact, descend from 80,000 feet, technically in outer space, down to the surface of our oceans and plunge under the ocean with no splash and proceed at hundreds of miles an hour under the water unabated in 7/10 of 1 second? How can that possibly be done within our understanding of physics? People generally, the overwhelming majority, when they learn that this is real, that this is really happening, they don't have the instantaneous reaction that, oh, that this is a national security threat to us. We want to know how this is happening. Where are they from? And what are their intentions here? What do they know that we don't know besides these types of technology? What we want to emphasize is that the documentary film, while serving an extraordinarily important function of telling people these dozen or so extraordinary facts that have been, in their mind, rumored for many years, but now confirming that they're true in some official sense, they also have this overtone of being a national security threat. What we want to do as the New Paradigm Institute, we want to point this out to people that we do not agree that the primary takeaway from the experience of this film should be that these extraterrestrial beings are, in fact, some type of national security threat. This is very much like the old Sufi saying that when a pickpocket meets a saint, all he sees are his pockets. Now, this is not to compare people in our United States military or our intelligence community to pickpockets, except that there is an element inside our Defense Department and inside our intelligence communities who have been conducting themselves in an unconstitutional, illegal, in fact, criminal manner to conceal this information. They've been lying to Congress. They've been committing perjury. They've been misappropriating funds. That is, they've been stealing government appropriated funds that are appropriated by our United States Congress to pay for certain types of programs. And they've been stealing that money and secreting it into a program for back engineering the technology of these UFOs for the purpose of designing a weapon system by means of which they can deliver a nuclear payload into the heart of Russia or China, specifically, within a matter of seconds, actually. A vast overwhelming majority of our people don't support that. They don't think that that's the appropriate response to saying, oh, look at, there's an extraterrestrial civilization here that may be billions of years older than us, that obviously have extraordinary technological capabilities that are vastly beyond ours. Isn't this wonderful? Let's get to know who these people are. Let's establish positive and constructive, mutually beneficial relations with them and learn what they know. And at the same time, take steps to safeguard our own agency as a human species so that we, in fact, can establish a partnership with them whereby we can benefit, they can benefit, ideally, from us. There's obviously some reason why they want to be here. We have myriad reports of hundreds and hundreds of people who have seen these UFOs and the beings from the UFOs, gathering together flora and fauna, different types of genetic materials and stuff on our planet, including human genetic material. Now, this is an extraordinarily interesting type of analogy to how our human family acts with regard to, other mammals. For example, apes and lower forms of species, of observing them, experimenting, gathering data from them and samples from them, etc. And so that may be what's going on here. Now that's troublesome to be treated like an inferior being. We don't like being treated like, chimpanzees or gorillas. And we're hoping that we would have the opportunity to persuade these beings that we are worthy of a more equal treatment on their part. But the fact of the matter is, as long as this national security state legacy group is lying to Congress about this, saying there is nothing like this going on, there is no such extraterrestrial civilization, we have no evidence of any kind, they keep saying, of them having any kind of contact with anybody on our planet. And as long as they keep doing that, our people are not going to be able to develop a positive and constructive and mutually beneficial relationship with these beings. This is the response on the part of our New Paradigm Institute to try to, at one and the same time, be grateful for the effort that has been made here to communicate to the people the reality of the existence of the extraterrestrial civilization, to communicate the reality of the UFO phenomenon, to acknowledge that the beings have been coming and going here from our planet. At the same time, we want to raise this caveat that we want people to remove this filter through which the information is being conveyed to us in this documentary film, that filters this information in a way to consistently refer to this as a national security threat of some sort. It's perfectly clear that the people who participated in this film would perceive these beings as a threat to our national security if they did nothing more than just come and go from our planet, because they're coming and going and entering into, quote, our airspace without permission and without having any kind of official communications, they say, with any of our government officials. So they view that as some kind of a threat. The fact of the matter is that latter aspect of this concern on their part is belied right by their own testimony, where at least two of the witnesses that were presented have explicitly asserted that there have been these direct communications on the part of the extraterrestrial beings, one formal at the Holloman Air Force Base back in 1964, where they actually met face-to-face with the United States government officials. Now, this does not address these other issues about whether or not President Eisenhower ever had any direct meeting with them, or whether there have been any other direct meetings or any treaties. All of this remains to be seen. But the fact of the matter is, everybody in this film told the viewers that what they have revealed, these dozen or so major revelations in the film, are only the tip of the iceberg of what the information is that is really known by our United States government, which is still being concealed. And so one of the deep concerns that our New Paradigm Institute has is that these people who have participated in the film are telling Congress that they are not going to tell the additional information to Congress unless and until they're authorized to do so by the people in this legacy program deep inside the national security state. And these witnesses are refusing to tell the members of Congress who those people are. Won't even tell who these people are, so that our Congress can go and subpoena them and mandate that they reveal this information to the Congress, at least, so that our elected representatives can determine what to do about this as a matter of policy. Go and see the film. It's on Amazon Prime. You can get it right on television. You could even, if you want to, you can sign up for Amazon Prime with a 7-day free trial and watch The Age of Disclosure and then cancel if you don't want to have to pay the $19.99 a month for the rest of your life. But you can get a chance to see this. You can buy it, actually, for like $25. We would recommend at the New Paradigm Institute that you locate your nearest Citizens for Disclosure group and work with them to establish a public showing of this for free. You do not charge people money to come and see this, because you do not want to be making any commercial use of this film. This is a public education device, and we want you to participate in showing it to others, even if it is only bringing your friends and neighbors to your home for a coffee gathering or a barbecue or anything, and show them the film, because they're going to come away from this being stunned. Even the Catholic Church has asked that this be done. Back in November 11th of 2009, Father Jose Gabriel Funes, who at the time was the director of the Pontifical Observatory at Castel Gandolfo outside of Rome, was directed by Pope Benedict to go to the press office of the Vatican and issue the following public statement. In light of the discovery of more and more of these new exoplanets, they said, it has now become clear, much sooner than had been previously anticipated, we are going to be discovering life elsewhere in the universe. Therefore, the time has arrived to commence an extremely important discussion among the laity of the profound philosophical and theological questions that are posed to our human family by the discovery of life elsewhere in the universe. That's the official statement that was issued. Now, because I had been general counsel for the United States Jesuit headquarters in their National Social Ministry office for 10 years in Washington, I was able to reach out and contact Father Funes and go to meet with him in person. And as I've told other people, almost anybody who will listen, I've told this before. Father Funes said to me, "Look, Danny," he said, "we're not talking here about the discovery of some single cell life form beneath some frozen sea, on some distant moon, orbiting some distant planet in a far off star system somewhere. We're talking about another highly intelligent and highly technologically developed, but distinctly non human species right here in our Milky Way galaxy." Okay. The fact of the matter is that there's 5 of them, at least, that we now know about, that there are 5 different species that appear to be from 5 different star systems. But all of them have been around so much longer than our human family has existed on our planet, that they have been able to develop the technology that enables them to come from their distant star system here to our planet. This is an important set of data for you to have. I have in the previous episodes, just been kind of starting to share some of this general information with you, but we've now reached the point where, subsequent to the showing of this Age of Disclosure film and the availability of this film as a public education device, we now are charged with responsibility as citizens of our planet to reach out and establish direct communication with these beings, to not leave this to the national security state people who are dedicated not simply to protecting the land and territorial waters of our country, but believe that they've been charged with deploying military force to be able to secure and maintain their continued privileged access to the strategic raw materials that they believe to be needed by their major corporations so they can remain a full military dominant force on our planet. That is a mission which we have to, as human beings, begin to push away and overcome now that we realize that we are in a much larger community, that there are literally thousands of planets here in our Milky Way galaxy that almost certainly have technologically developed intelligent species. This is probably the most important single revelation. Second to, they're trying to tell us that we as human beings have vastly higher capacities than we have yet realized. And this is one of the consistent messages, because nowhere in the Age of Disclosure do you hear any real detailed discussion about the fact that tens of thousands of the members of our human family have had direct face-to-face encounters with the extraterrestrial species, non-human species, who are piloting the UFOs. This is part of the secret that is still being suppressed, and that there are other secrets that are still being suppressed. What we need to do is mobilize not only to reach out and establish direct communication as citizen diplomats with all of these extraterrestrial species, but we have got to put pressure on every single one of our elected representatives in the Congress to pass a major statute, which is going to be introduced by Congressman Eric Burleson right at the beginning of the second session of this Congress, starting right after the holidays, and get Congress fully informed about this. So Congress can, in fact, develop policy as to how we can develop and maintain a positive, constructive, and mutually beneficial relationship with these beings, not have our United States military and our intelligence community decide to lie to us continuously and try to use the technology from their craft to build another weapon system by means of which they can dominate our own planet. This has got to stop. Rather than antagonize these people, what we need to do is we need to have an upward, positive, forward sense of our mission. I'm Dan Sheehan. We're coming to you from the New Paradigm Institute on SpectraVision Radio.
To join the citizen movement for disclosure, visit newparadigminstitute.org/take action.